Thanks so much, guys, for joining us. I know there's a ton of things on offer during Tech Week, so we're thrilled you chose to come to JustWorks and Mucker Capital event. I'm Tessa Batiston. I work on our VC partnerships team, working with founders all day, every day, which is great. If you see around the room, we've got a great QR code up here for a 24-month offer. It's basically 25% off for 24 months for anyone who attended this event on our payroll, PEO, or international EOR services. So if you're thinking about hiring your first person, your first 5 or 10 people, you want to keep talent abroad, we're a really excellent solution for that, and we grow with you. So we're thrilled you came, and thanks so much to Mucker for putting this together. And I'll hand it off to Tony. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tessa. Yeah, let's thank our partner, JustWorks, for letting us use their fabulous space with a great view. So hopefully you guys won't get distracted. Pay attention to the content today. But thanks for coming to our second session of the day. Before we introduce our panelists, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tony. I work at Mucker Capital. We are an early stage venture firm. We do seed and Series A investments. We also run an accelerator program that can be participated anywhere. You could be remote. We do have a person, an investor based here in New York. So if you guys are a founder based in New York, I'll point you out to him. He's not here today, but yeah, I can make an intro. But really, today we are here to learn together on the topic of AI, SEO, AEO, GEO, whatever term that we want to use that you guys think is going to stick. But basically, yeah, that is the topic for this next session. We've got a fantastic lineup of experts for our panel. So don't be shy. I'll open up the floor for questions for the audience. But yeah, we could just jump right in. Why don't we go down the line and have you guys introduce yourselves and let us know your name, what you do. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. My name is Jason Patel. I'm the co-founder and CEO of OpenForge AI. I'm a repeat founder. I sold my first business in 2023. I live here, Jersey City, not New York. Always rep in New Jersey. Very nice to meet everyone.
We're not going to hold the Jersey thing against you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Alp. I'm the co-founder of Cognizo, which is an AI, SEO, AEO, GEO, whatever you call it, platform. I'm a first-time founder, and before this, I was building search for Microsoft Copilot, so engineer through and through.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Emily Richardson. I'm one of the co-founders and COO of Known. We are an analytics platform that helps companies understand how they're showing up in AI search. And I'm also going to be, you're going to see me twice. I'm going to be doing the next presentation specifically on dual web and optimizing your on-site infrastructure for AI search. So stay tuned for that, but yeah, pass it off.
Hey, I'm Mike King, CEO and founder of iPullRank. We do relevance engineering for machine media. And I'm also a 12-year customer of JustWorks.
You get a special prize.
I don't get 25% off, though.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for joining us. So first question, I mentioned this. There's these terms, right? Do you think there is a difference between how people call it AI, SEO, AEO, GEO? Is there even a difference that you think is important to distinguish?
First of all those names are silly. SEO is a silly name too. We were never optimizing search engines, just like you're not optimizing generative engines or answer engines. There are engineers that work at those companies that are optimizing those. If anything, what we are doing is what's called feature engineering for those systems. So I don't agree with any of those terms.
Okay. All right. What would you call it?
Relevance engineering.
Relevance engineering. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think conceptually, the way you think about search, going from ranking for a keyword or a long tail question to now being selected for a whole litany of potential natural language questions is the big thing that you want to change. I'll give you a real life example. The first business I had, I started that in 2016, 2017, and we had pages that ranked for really lucrative keywords for a period of 3, 4, 5 years. And you spend 1 unit of financial currency to produce this piece, and it continues printing money for you year in and year out if you rank really well. Whereas with AEO or whatever the acronym is, the rankings are a lot more dynamic. You can show up once, but then not show up the next week. But there are a lot more quote unquote keywords, natural language questions to show up for, and therefore be selected for. Conceptual shift in how you think about it as well.
In general, I prefer AEO or answer engine optimization, mainly because GEO or generative engine optimization If you type that into Google, it shows up with a rock. So for SEO and AEO purposes, I do prefer AEO specifically, but nobody in the industry has really locked down the differences between all of those, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. The only thing I'll say is when you're building search inside one of these big tech firms, you call the people that take action to optimize engines black box optimizers. And it's like essentially true, right? We're all trying to find the right signals to understand what this black box does and how it behaves and where it's consistent versus inconsistent or deterministic versus non-deterministic, such that we can engineer something mathematically out of it, whether that's relevance, whether you call that answer engine. Fundamentally, we're looking at a black box, and the black box we're all looking at is the same one.
All right, why don't we open up the black box a little bit? And I know many of you guys have been in the traditional SEO game for a while. Mike particularly, I've followed you for a long time. Super glad that you're here. Can you guys, without going to all the nitty-gritty details, maybe explain to our audience the difference between, let's call it traditional SEO, right? Like the EAT model or whatever term that you guys want to describe how traditional search works, and how AI, for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to say AI search, okay? How AI search works today. Can you guys break down the difference?
I got it. So the fundamental thing that you need to understand is what's called retrieval-augmented generation, which is the paradigm behind how AI search works. And to simplify that, it's basically a large language model combined with a search engine. And so what happens is user types in a prompt or a query or whatever, and then that gets extrapolated to a series of queries in something that's called query fan-out. And so these synthetic queries are running through the search engine, and then they're pulling back relevant passages from documents that rank from all those queries, and then feeding them to the language model to then generate a response. So what you need to do that's different is basically have more surface area for your content. And that's not just make more pages on your website for all those queries I just mentioned, because some of those queries have an expectation of content format. So in some cases, it may look for a video. In some cases, it may look for review content, which is not going to be on your site. In some cases, it may want to look for Reddit and things like that. So effectively, you need to think about your content ecosystem and how do you have more things that align with those expectations of what those systems are looking for.
Yeah, and one thing I'd add to that is comparison content, which is done very well in AEO quote unquote rankings. Essentially, when you type in something that I literally have done recently is if I want to get a new moisturizer for a scar I have from long ago, you compare different men's moisturizers after you shower or before jujitsu practice or what have you. If you have that content on your site and it's pre-formatted, you're removing the friction the RAG system needs to select you. So therefore, you're almost priming your content to be selected by AI. We see comparison content work really well. And then for certain industries too, G2 or Gartner, wherever the reports are, AI will pull data from those sources. And again, compare and contrast you versus another competitor potentially. So comparison content's a big one.
And when we look fundamentally at the differences between SEO and AEO specifically, one of the key statistics that I like to pull up is that, and Ahrefs just came out with, which is a big SEO now AEO website, but it just came out with their state of AI search in general. It was a large PDF that talked about all of the statistics, and this was a significant one. They asked 1,500 prompts to both Google and all of the 4 major AI search platforms. And on average, the overlap between what was cited in those AI search platforms and then what was cited on Google and ranked on Google, 81% were not even ranked for that same question on Google. So fundamentally, what Mike was talking about of the mechanism in which they search is fundamentally different. Google specifically indexes through keywords. They index entire pages. They like skyscraper pages. There was a reason that in front of every recipe we read, we get a person's entire life story. Google loved that, but AI search loves to jump to the recipe. They just want it short and sweet and chunked information, mainly because the mechanism with which they search, I like to say they search with math, calls for very different things than what SEO used to call for, and that's very evident in that 81% not even being ranked for the same query.
Yeah, I guess stepping back, the only fundamental difference I would be able to tell, apart from what's already described here, would simply be we used to be able to ask a question to Google, and up until 2007, it was just 10 blue links. And then in 2008 or so, it was like still 10 blue links and maybe a Wikipedia snippet here or a frequently asked question there so that you click less and get the answer that you need. And it's been shifting to a point where literally the company that has been building them invented large language models. And the whole point of the idea of the invention is that you don't click anything and try to understand and synthesize information for yourself, and rather a bot does that for you. So fundamentally what happens in the background is the bot is doing that for you. I think what Michael said is exactly right, where you have all of these query fan outs that does all of the search, and then you get all of the results, and what I would call a lazy human is summarizing that information out as a result for you. That's fundamentally what is a little bit different than search, in the sense that you don't have to do any work to get an answer, like clicking a button.
Which is also scary because we're like offloading interpretation to machines. And there's a lot of things that you learned when you went through your process of searching. When you think about it, you had to first convert your information need into Orwellian newspeak. Then you had to review 10 links and you're like, all right, that's not it. Now I got to reformulate my query, do it again. And as you read through 40 different pages or whatever, you learned as you went. Now you're offloading that to a language model, and you may miss nuances that may have changed your opinion. So it's scary, but it's also good technology.
And so on that note, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I did an interview with Tyler Calder, who's the CMO of PartnerStack, like a directory company, essentially, great company. And he was saying, Mike, that one of the biggest concerns that they're seeing with their customers with respect to AI search is what he calls answer integrity. This reinterpretation. The AI says something about your brand and you're looking at it going, that's not what we said at all. That's not who we are. That's actually a mistake. Probably another one of these big new fields in AI search that's super interesting that'll be coming up.
That's something we saw for our clients.
Likewise. And answer integrity is really big. And also think of it from an incentive perspective as well. Let's take ChatGPT. Let's not even talk about AI doing web search or anything. Its goal is to be trustworthy. That means that its goal is to have answer integrity, whether if the users are using it or not. That's the fundamental goal of a language model, such that it can be used. And because of that, how people search, it's not just that how people search are changing and it's moving into ChatGPT or let's say Perplexity or Copilot or Claude. It's that they also have to fundamentally change how they do search, such that it has more integrity.
So one more note on that. So yes, ChatGPT needs to have answer integrity, but users don't believe it. It's still 40% of users that leave ChatGPT go to Google, presumably to verify whatever the answer.
There are likely a few reasons there, primarily navigation, in my opinion, but post-navigation, I absolutely agree with you. You can actually see a huge research on this by McKinsey, where they said the first resource a lot of users go to, I think like 45% of the entire world or the entire question set, and some 70% of Gen Z goes to AI first. And then they have secondary resources, primarily social media and Google.
So you do agree with me?
I absolutely do agree with you. Yeah. That's why we fix it, right?
It's all good.
By show of hands, how many of you guys are founders in this room? Founders. Okay. And how many of you are not founders but work in a role where this whole topic of SEO affects your day-to-day job is what you do, or growth, or anything related to that? Okay. For sessions like this, we like to have the audience leave with a very practical takeaway. In the spirit of that, what kind of advice would you guys give to many of the founders and people who do SEO and content on a day-to-day basis in terms of how they should be thinking or shifting their thinking from traditional optimization for search to now AI search? Emily, you brought up the term skyscraper content. Maybe can you quickly explain what that means to people who are unfamiliar with that term, but more importantly, talk about some of the changes that you think they need to prepare themselves for moving away from traditional SEO tactics?
Yeah, great.
To everyone.
I can start with the skyscraper content, and I'll focus on the on-site elements because I know we all here have a lot to say. So I'll focus specifically on on-site content. Skyscraper page refers to Google previously Index still does, indexes the full page. And so a lot of people would just put a lot of text on one page. Again, you see this in recipes, you see this in blogs with a lot of keyword stuffing. Keyword stuffing became a thing for a reason. And AI search, however, in general, about 44% of content that's pulled into ChatGPT is from the top third of the website, of the page. So what's really important when you're writing content, there's two layers. There's one mathematical layer where you're mathematically and structurally optimizing the content to be pulled in by AI bots specifically, because AI bots read very differently than we do, and they read very differently than Google does. Google uses keywords. AI bots reads more in a mathematical way. So you want to make sure that your headline is ideally a question. Kevin Indig, a prominent figure in the AEO SEO space, recently came out with a study that said headings that were queries and questions were 2 times more likely to be pulled into the AI search answer as a citation. Then you directly below that added a summary, have chunked content. Unlike Google, it doesn't read through the whole page. It reads specifically through chunks of information. So as paragraph-like as possible, with as much information within that paragraph directly to the point as possible, is ideal. And then having FAQs, if you can, on the pages, and author bio, a reason that they should trust what you're saying and who you are. So that's some elements of the on-site optimization. I will also note that speed for your web page is very important. So for AI search specifically, pages that load in below 0.6 seconds have 6 times more likely to show up in an AI search answer than pages that load longer than 1.2 seconds. So it really is a significant impact on whether or not you're showing up, just because ChatGPT bots are scraping a lot of websites at once. So that's on-site content specifically, and I'll let everybody else as well talk about the off-site element too.
I think when you're also ranking or trying to quote unquote rank for a particular query, you can break queries down, generally speaking, into 4 buckets. There's informational content, which Google loved back in the day, right? That's the thing I was saying, where if you ranked for a lucrative keyword, you could rank there for a couple of years and print money off that piece of content. And then there's navigational content or a query, which is where take me to a page. Commercial, which is the golden one, in my opinion, which is people are searching for an answer, they're doing research, their hand is on their wallet, and they want to make a purchase, they're doing research for it. And then finally, there's transactional, which is you want to buy. Informational, generally speaking, from all the companies I've spoken to in the past year, has taken a massive hit with AI, because AI will synthesize the answer, give you the answer, and the customer is not going to click into your website, which means that if you over-indexed on informational content over the past 5 to 6 years, you want to, in my opinion, shift to commercial content, which is comparing yourself against competitors or manuals, any how-to type of guide where you're giving someone instrumental value in how they use your product in their daily life. To echo this now, let's say I've spoken to 1,000 companies in the past year about AEO. I want to say literally all of them. I cannot even recall one that has gained traffic. And I would say majority of them have lost between 10 to 30% of their traffic. But the customers that come in through AI search convert anywhere from 1.4 to 1.8 times better than traditional search. So these people are coming in, once they look at your content, they've done their research. And although it's a smaller pie of people coming in, the people coming in are a lot more warm, and they're potentially higher likelihood of purchasing from you.
Sure.
What do you do for AI search, basically?
Generally, what I would say is, I think that any sort of optimization that you're looking into in this new marketing channel is what I would describe as continuous, low effort, weekly work, essentially. What I mean by that is, yes, you can do on content optimization. You absolutely do need to figure out what kind of questions that you want to be showing up for in AI. But once you do that, the general practice is build human-first content that people like, and essentially have some data backing around what kind of content calendar you should be building. Are you going to post on social media? Are you going to build blogs? Are you going to work with third-party media establishments? Likely all of them. Make sure you have a calendar, get them done every week. And as a founder, that's how I did it when we started Cognizo, and that's what's been working.
What I would add is measurement for this is different than classic search. So AI search platforms are more branding channels than they are performance channels. And if you measure just on performance, you're only seeing a small bucket of it, to Jason's point. And so the way we think about it is we stratify it in 3 different buckets. There's performance, which is what you always do, referral traffic, how it performs. Then there is the brand measures, which is going to be like share of voice and your visibility rates and your answer integrity score, or whatever you want to call it. And then there's the input metrics, the things that you actually affect. So it's going to be bot activity, because everything that's not Google and Bing are requesting pages in real time, which goes back to Emily's point on page speed being really important. One quick caveat there. There's a HTTP status code that isn't talked about in our space because nobody knew about it. It's the 499 status code. If you see that, that means that platform gave up on waiting for your page to load. So that's a situation where you definitely need to speed things up. But also for the input metrics, you've also got how well do you rank for the synthetic queries that we talked about? What's your passage relevance scores? Because those are the things that are being considered when pulled in. So you got to think about this in 3 different buckets, because again, if you're just looking at the ultimate outcome, which there's not going to be a lot of with respect to performance, you're missing a lot of the picture.
Alp, you brought up something, or you said a phrase about asking for a question. And so I wanted to ask you guys, all 4 of you, how should a founder or someone focused on content and SEO in the previous paradigm of traditional SEO, they're thinking, all right, I should optimize for these keywords. I think, can't remember the exact reports, but it might have been SEMrush or maybe Ahrefs. The average word length of a query was 3.2 or 4 words or whatever. And then prompts are people typing out whole questions, right? So how should someone think about difference between keyword planning, keyword, trying to optimize for certain keywords versus answering very specific questions? Is it a long tail strategy? What do you guys think how they should take that into account?
My one sentence answer would be use Cognizo, but I will give a real example on top of that as well, which is essentially when you were doing keyword research prior to Google Ads particularly, you relied on SEO platforms to do that research for you. What they do is they have this data system called clickstream data. Essentially, it's real users willing to, in exchange of something, willing to share their network with providers that SEO platforms purchase. So 20 years ago, when you were doing SEO research or keyword research, these are the metrics you relied on. You can think of them as like directionally accurate ways to understand trending keywords or topics. The same exists for AI, and how you need to think about this is I can say hello, hi, and I can say this and reiterate this in a million different ways. That's the primary difference here. And what that comes down to is this idea of intent. At the end of the way, even if you're writing a paragraph versus just a single keyword versus at 1 sentence, there's some intent behind the question that you're seeking for, and the query fan outs and all the beautiful stuff that AI does before synthesizing that information is what you should be looking at, as in what kind of intent do I want to be optimizing for? Am I looking at commercial queries that look for this specific niche, or do I want to be an information leader as part of my branding in these kind of intent areas and all that good stuff, basically.
I would also say we should all be doing this anyway, but talk to your customers. At this point, there are more call recording tools than there are human beings in the world. Everyone's got one, right? Put one on, turn that one on, turn yours on, or in the call, of course, ask for permission to record the call. And if you do 1 customer call a day, you have 30 calls by the end of the month, you will find patterns. If you're solving a worthwhile problem, you will find patterns in what your prospects, customers are saying. They will word questions the same way. They will use the same terms. They will have the same cadence when they talk. It's one of the really beautiful things about human beings is that we mirror each other when we need to solve certain problems. Once you find how people are asking those questions, you literally, word for word, take those questions, put them into your content tool, put them into whatever AI you like, and then create content based off those questions. And it sounds super simple. It's like when a company prints a billboard and they're mirroring whatever a customer says. It's the same thing here. Same thing what Mike was saying before about how this is a branding exercise now. It's a brand marketing tool. So find out what your customers are saying, mirror that, build content off of that. And if you're having a tough time remembering what customers are saying, call recording software, and you'll have an entire database, entire customer tickets worth of data that you can pull from to create content off of, because you're going straight to where the money is, and that's where the customers are.
Okay. So it sounds like focus on specific questions that you're hearing from your customers as opposed to, hey, I think these are the top keywords in my industry that I should optimize for.
Yeah, because what'll end up happening is that if you all go after a certain keyword, everyone is going to compete for those keywords. And then there'll be automatic diminishing returns from those same keywords you try to target. It's an all-out war for, let's say, the same 5 terms. 5 different companies claim them, and then the rest of you are kept out. What I would say is find out what your customers are looking for, start there, because as a small company, you can win on the long tail. If you solve your problem in a certain way, with a certain angle that's different than what the big guys do, if a customer hears about that or they talk about that problem in a certain way, you want to be the one that gets selected and that shows up for that. And then therefore you have a chance of beating that larger customer or that larger competitor.
Anybody else want to add to that question?
I will add one thing in terms of audience really matters for AI search in general, because people put a lot of themselves into their queries. They're like, I'm a product manager, I am an assistant, they insert themselves a lot into these queries. So often when an individual is making content for their website, there's an opportunity to make 5 variations of the same piece of content, but targeting different audiences or different segments of your clientele. So that is something, a little hack, if you will, of how to multiply content and make sure that it's as specific as possible for your key audiences. Because again, they're putting a lot of themselves in search, and they previously have not been able to do that with Google, given the fact that it was mainly for keywords.
Mike, you were talking about brand. Share a voice, brand mentions, and stuff like that. I work with a lot of founders at Mucker, and for better or for worse, as an investor, we always ask, hey, how's business going? You're investing your capital, cash, resources into these specific areas. What's it getting us, right? Is this working? In a zero-click environment, how do you justify that? How do you start to, if we know building a brand is important, but at the end of the day, if we can say, you're talking about measurement, right? That's one of the areas that, how do we figure out whether or not we should be investing in building up our brand for AI search, where you don't get those clicks or further downstream performance metrics?
Yeah, it's still early days on that, because in other spaces like this, you have like media mix modeling and things like that. But people are still trying to figure that out for AI search. But I will say this, right? If it's not just about the transactional side of it, it's also like a brand protection side of it. Because it's, if the story about your brand out there is not accurate, that's going to cause problems in other ways as well. Or even if it's like the loyalty stage and someone's doing research and they're like, okay, what happens when something goes wrong when I use this product? If the only thing in AI search is saying they're not supportive and so on and so forth, that's going to impact your top of funnel and your bottom of funnel. So I don't think it's the sort of thing where we're going to be able to like directly attribute it, but it's the sort of thing that you have to do from a brand protection perspective. In the same way where people don't want their display ads to show up on porn sites, right? You got to make sure that's not happening, even if it doesn't yield a direct impact.
Yeah. Any other opinions on that regarding brands, zero-click? No? Okay. Let's talk about backlinks and citations, because I'm sure people who have heard about AI search have probably come across the word citations. Are those the same thing? And if not, how do you, in the old world of traditional SEO, you go and try to get good backlinks to your website, right? With high DRs and stuff like that. How do you think about that in AI search? Oh my God.
With all due respect, I don't care about backlinks at all in this environment. And I get that people do care about them, but the thing is this, in SEO, people have thought of this as like a volume play the whole time. They're like, oh, my competitor has 90 links. If I build 93 that are a DR of 52, I'm going to outperform them. That's not true. First of all the metrics that are publicly available are not necessarily the ones that Google is using, whatever. And they're like approximations of old versions of Google's metrics, which is based on PageRank. So we don't have good data on this at all. And then the other thing is that there's information that came out with a few leaks from Google a couple years ago where we learned that they segment their index into a variety of different buckets. So there was something called source type where it's segmented into high, medium, and low. And then there's another one called fresh docs, which is basically pages from news organizations and things like that. And so the proxy for understanding of whether or not you're in the high, medium, or low bucket is, does the site linking to you rank well for things, and does it get traffic? Those are two things that are not contemplated at all in any of the metrics that you get from Ahrefs, SEMrush, or Majestic or Moz. So again, we have very imperfect data there. And then the other reality is that Google has been so focused on relevance, going back to basically when they introduced the concept of vector embeddings. And again, nothing in SEO is accounting for relevance when you're building links. So the reality is, what we've learned from a variety of the search engines over the years, you could build 5 links and outperform somebody that has 5,000. And so that's why I don't care about link building the way that we talk about it in the SEO space. I do care about it when it's highly focused on relevance and pages that actually perform. Now, citations are a different thing. They can be the same thing. Like if your brand is mentioned on a page that links to you, now they are the same thing. But you can get citations without links, and that does ultimately reinforce whatever message is around your brand across the web that these large language models are learning from. So there's definite value in that. But I think the way that people go about getting citations is not dissimilar from what they do in link building. And again, it doesn't yield high quality stuff.
Yeah, link building is different. I'll give you an example. Probably shouldn't be saying this, but a lot of us probably, if you've done SEO in the past, I used to pay a vendor, what was it, like $2K a month for a host of 6 to 10 really great backlinks from random parts of the internet, all legitimate sites. They all had their own PBNs, right? Private
blog network.
There we go. Yeah. Worked like a charm. And
how you gonna say legitimate and then say PBN?
It worked. And so why would that not work today? One, we have a large customer in Europe, for example, and they focused the past couple of years on building up their Gartner profile. But it turns out that ChatGPT specifically, I'm ignoring Claude and Gemini right now, really loves G2. So they haven't focused anything on G2. And that's where their competitors are getting their quote unquote citations from. Whereas they've spent the past 4 to 5 years trying to focus on Gartner. I don't want to say that's money and time down the drain. What I am saying, though, is that exactly what Mike was saying. It's about relevance. The AI is going to pull from a certain citation economy's worth of links related to your industry. So what works for a car manufacturer will be different from a car dealership, will be different from a liquor store, will be different for an HVAC company, will be different for a B2B SaaS company in X market versus Y market. It's all going to differ. You have to figure out what works specifically for your market. And that's where the relevance part comes in.
And I do want to take a moment to highlight citations and mentions, because those are two kind of statistics and variables that we look at specifically in AI search analytics. And citations are when ChatGPT answers, you can go click down into sources and see where it pulled from. And even if you click on those, it'll highlight the small chunk of text that it pulled that information from as well. So that's specifically a citation. But a mention is when your brand name is actually pulled into the answer. And arguably, I do find that, and our clients find that even more valuable, is when your brand name is attached to the actual answer. And mentions can happen without your website being cited specifically, because it's all about your name. So if your name shows up far and wide on the web related to that specific topic and as closely related as possible, you're more likely to be actually mentioned, even if your citation rate is low. And that's the beauty of the digital PR. That's the beauty of offsite marketing specifically as well. But I did want to call that out because it's now like backlinks were the past, and now we're looking specifically at citations and mentions as two different variables.
Thanks for that explanation, by the way. Stepping back, I just want to really quickly highlight how this all works. You asked a question. The query fanouts that Michael mentioned occurred. AI is reading, let's say, 60 different pages. if you want to look up the fancy name, look up reciprocal rank fusion. But essentially, there's an algorithm that language models use to say, let me rank these pages in a way that makes sense to me and that has the most relevant information to this question. It may be multiple pages, it usually is. And then if your name is on those pages often or in an authoritative enough way, like how SEO works, by the way, then you are in the answer as the best shoe being from Adidas or something. And that's why I also don't care about backlinks at all, because the traditional practice of backlinking is to build your own blog and then go to a credible website or a PBN if you want to go down that route and essentially make sure that, let's say, for Cognizo, it's AI visibility. Let's say the AI visibility is when a user clicks it on this reputable website, it just goes to Cognizo's blog. Nowhere in that backlink did the name Cognizo ever come up. So it's essentially impossible for me to be in the answer of AI. I would much rather spend my time building real conversations around my brand and my company and who we are and what we think and all those beautiful things that most of your founders love doing. So again, like citations is more around, this is what AI reads. It is what it's going to use to answer to you. Backlinks don't necessarily equate citations and they should be separated. I agree with everything everybody else said.
I want to make one more point on piggybacking off what you just said. Investing in your content and promoting it is going to be way more valuable than going after link building. And I actually used to run marketing for a link building agency. I had a marketing team of, I don't know, let's call it 15 people. And we had a production team of over 100 people. And that same year, just from creating content and promoting it, we built 11,000 links. The production team built 3,000 links. So that goes to show you just making things that people actually want is going to be way more valuable.
Can you clarify or explain what you mean by promoting? Is it buying ads to drive towards the content? What do you mean by that?
It can mean a variety of things, right? Like it could mean promoting it on social media, starting a subreddit that's about your subject matter. It can be partnering with folks. It can be guest posting. It can be webinars. It can be pretty much anything that's like promotional, but also the ads can work really well. And that was actually one of the link building tactics that we used to use. We would create a piece of content that was like really attractive to journalists and then promote it specifically to those journalists using ads, with the idea that they would either subscribe to our content and then end up adding it to their coverage or whatever. Native advertising works really well for this. So yeah, there's a variety of ways, but anything that's content promotion can be really valuable here.
Awesome. So I was going to ask one last question before I open up to the audience related to that or in that vein. If there's one thing or one activity that you would recommend a busy founder to do to improve their AI SEO performance, what would that be?
I'll tell you what, my agency shows up most when you look for AI search things related to like, how do you actually get it done? And the way we did that was really simple. We just made something called the AI search manual that basically covered the whole topic at a time where no one else knew what to do. So I would say figure out what is the thing around your brand that people really want to know about, and then make the definitive guide to it. That's still the play because you need that content surface area, but don't just limit it to pages on your site. Again, make videos, make things in partnership with people so you have that whole surface area around that query space or prompt space for what you're trying to sell against.
I'll go with a more boring answer. Structured data or schema. Making sure your page and your website are optimized correctly. Probably, it depends on the space that you're in, but I think that could be something high leverage. Doesn't take very long, pretty simple. Give you an example. We serve a large alcohol brand. Their content does okay, but in that space for alcohol, for whiskey and whatnot, product pages just kill it for some reason. That's what ChatGPT and Gemini seem to love. And so you optimize your site, make sure there's the proper tags, make sure it's structured as a product page. ChatGPT and Gemini both know what's on that page. Very low-hanging fruit, high ROI type of activity. Would highly recommend that.
If you're a founder and if you're a founder, you're busy, so I'm not going to add the busy adjective to it. You don't want to look at a lot of data, and I really get that as someone that sells a lot of analytics data as my business. I know it gets really overwhelming. I would say, again, plan a content calendar. That is work that you have to do on social media, perhaps third party if you have the resources, and your blog. Spend a few hours a week at max determining that, and the groundwork of actually writing it can go to AI for the most part. Add your own thoughts to it. Don't be AI slob. It will get punished. But essentially, spend a few hours a week trying to understand what is your AI search manual and get it out every week slowly. And in a few months, you will see that turning into something really valuable.
And I think the overarching value is really create unique content that people actually want to learn about. And that talks to the guide, but depending on your industry, that's going to be different and specific. A thing that I like to say is one of the biggest pain points for ChatGPT and AI in general is they can't experience anything. And that's why they rely so much on Reddit. That's why it relies so much on community forums. There's no way for an AI to actually have a first-person account or a first-person experience of that.
Yet.
Yeah, we'll see. Yet, maybe a few years or months, who knows. But basically, if you add that first-person account, that first-person knowledge onto your website, onto third-party content, that's very important and will differentiate you from a lot of the AI slop that's already out there. It also has a lot of traction right now, specifically on ChatGPT, on Gemini, on AI overviews. So now's the time to hop on that train as well.
I'll also add one thing, which is, again, be patient. I know I said this before, but it's a low amount of work every week consistency channel, in my opinion. If somebody is telling you that they can make sure that you're the top in AI in a week, they're lying to you. You need to really understand who are the personas or audiences you're serving for, and slowly build your reputation among the entire web slowly.
Awesome. All right, questions from the audience?
Second one is, any thoughts about agent? Go ahead.
Are we? What are you going to say?
I was going to say llms.txt. Correct me if I'm wrong. No actual evidence that it works, but I would still do it. It's easy. It's easy.
Hold on. So I would have agreed with you a few weeks ago. It is valuable because Claude uses it. So with kind of Claude gaining popularity, it is used to instruct how Claude can get to that content. So it's valuable. I actually don't know what agent cards are, though. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But you could also do the same thing with WebMCP.
Yeah, there are a bunch of protocols now. So, yeah.
Over here.
Hi, Amanda. So I have lots of thoughts on that, but we have a tool provider right here. I feel like he should do it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So there are a few pieces here, right? The first is, your question was around, how do you use a solution like Cognizo? There are many out there to essentially determine your strategy, that what you essentially want to show up for in AI search, bucket them into, this is to defend my brand's image versus commercial queries I do want to show up to get that performance in, and then to actually take action on it and determine, am I building a blog here or am I going to Reddit? Am I understanding that question correctly? It's an incredible question. Essentially, the first part, in my opinion, is the hardest one to find out, because that is the kind of content that is not publicly available, right? I can't just plug in your website, especially if you're starting new. I can't just plug in your website and be able to tell you what exactly it is you're doing or who you're targeting. That information generally comes in from the users that are coming to a platform like Cognizo. And then essentially what we can do is talk about all of these data that we talked about, whether that's clickstream or how search is used, to figure out the kinds of questions that you should be asking on a commercial side and work with you to determine what kind of branding you're going for, so that those questions are added to the platform as well. Then the fancy work of citations showing up comes up, and this is where you're truly doing black box optimization, with the black box being a little more transparent than if you didn't use a solution of this nature, where we will essentially be able to audit not only what you need to do, but what your competitors are already doing to be the answer in AI. And that gives you a sense of understanding of the kind of strategies that your competitors have already built. And that in and of itself is a great place to start to understand how to build strategy, whether you need to focus on your own blog because it's missing versus social media. That's roughly it.
Yeah, I basically would echo that. The measurement of where you stand on certain prompts will answer that question for you. You'll see, okay, I don't have visibility, but it is a bunch of Reddit threads. Cool, let me jump into Reddit. Or I do have a lot of visibility here, but the answer is not reflective of what I want my brand to say. Okay, I need to go out and get these edited across these different websites that we don't own. Or I need to cover it a bit better on my own site. The measurement is going to drive what you want to do, but you need to start from really understanding what the prompts are. And there's a variety of tools, like he's saying, that are out there. Some of them are pulling clickstream data so you can see what the prompts are, but you are going to want to basically semantically reduce that because there's going to be so much variance across all of those. Another thing that these platforms do, they will showcase the query fan out queries if they're doing logged in scraping of chat GPT or whatever. And then you can use those to see, okay, how well am I showing up for these queries that these platforms are looking at? But again, the measurement of all of that is going to dictate like where you need to take action.
How do you see this evolving as AI becomes not just a search tool that gives us answers to questions, but is also becoming a place where agents can take action on our behalf? And how do you see, where do you see that going?
This is the death of the open web. I actually just wrote about this. What I foresee in the next 4 or 5 years is you're not going to go directly to a website unless it's just for funsies. You're going to have all sorts of apps that you're using that proactively collect information for you, remix it into whatever format you prefer, and then that's where you're going to consume content. If you think about something like Notebook LM, which if anyone isn't familiar with it, it's a platform where you can upload PDFs and videos or whatever, and you could turn that into a podcast and then consume that in the way that you want. I think that's the future of the web. And so when you layer on transactions, I'm not going to have to go to your website to transact. I'm just going to say, hey, I need this thing. And then my agent's going to take care of it for me. It's going to buy it and use my preferences for shipping and all that sort of stuff. So I think that we need to big picture be thinking about what the web looks like in the future, because it being about traffic and monetizing traffic it's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah, that's actually a quick plug for Emily's session right after this one. She's going to be talking about dual web, so stick around for that. Okay, we're going to have time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions, and that's it. You want to go?
Hey, y'all. Thanks for the insights. I'm Aaron Jordan. I'm the founder at Pebble. My question is related to the backlinking piece, and I was actually about to spend some money with a marketing person on some backlinking and SEO things, but it sounds like I need to use that money for other things. Can you talk to me just at high level on my platform focuses on event organizers and creating basically it's operating system for event organizers. Think festivals, concerts, sporting events. We manage the registration for vendors. What types of content or things should I be seeing in the top portion of my website that is more valuable than you guys would say backlinking is?
So Aaron, I'm happy to help you. I don't know about the Red Sox hat though, so we'll have to talk about that. No, I'm kidding, but it's a nice hat. Thank you for the question. I think if I could provide you a place to start is find out the questions that you want to rank for or show up for, and then see who shows up there. That's the best place to find the signal as to what's showing up. And I believe a woman here just asked earlier about where to start with the content. Find the questions that you actually want to show up for. You're not limited to these questions, but find out what those questions are, what the questions customers are asking, and then see who shows up. And then see what are the assets that show up. Is it third party? Is it a third party review? Is it a roundup type of blog? Is it an actual web page? Is it a home page? And then reverse engineer what works based off of that, so it doesn't feel like you're throwing darts in the darkness. So find out the questions you want to show up for, find out who's showing up, and find out what those assets are. Once you figure out what those assets are, you'll figure out where the signal is amongst all the noise, and then you can better spend your time and money focusing on that.
I just have one more thing to add here, which is I fundamentally believe that every business decision will be made with the help of AI, even if not today, in the future. So it's extremely important that you pay attention and start early and get that done. And you said that you were going to pay for a backlink agency, right? like, don't pay money to someone just to get backlinks, but if there's a reason behind it, like it works for your marketing, you're getting backlinks in a blog that you know is being read by your leads or potential customers, then it wouldn't be fair for me to turn around and say, don't get backlinks, but it's also not a cheat code to unlock SEO. And what I just want to second what Jason said on top of that.
This for people have lots of questions. You have a guide, you're going to show up for pretty much most of the questions that they're asking. And then you give them, like, you're basically teaching them how to buy your product, because you're like, hey, if you want to run this event, these are the things you need to be doing, and here's how my product supports it. So starting there and having something that's like a resource for a lot of people is going to be very attractive to links naturally, which are going to be better links than the ones you're going to get from whoever you were considering. And it's also going to be more food for the visibility for what you're trying to get.
All right, last question.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a two-time exited founder, and I actually exited a blog.
Nice.
So I feel like I'm with my people. My current company, GoSady, is my new startup, and I'm building it to preserve discovery. Because what a lot of this topic has been about today is the thing. I'm in the knitting and crochet space. I'm in the tactile and textile space, and I think that we're killing discovery. So I would love to, if just for a moment, while this has all been really stuff I'm going to be using and coming back to all of you with, but can we talk about discovery for a minute? Because I think that, especially to Mike's point, I don't want an agent finding a knitting pattern for me. I want to discover the craft. And so could we talk for a minute about how to use these tools and how to use them to preserve what really we want to do, which is live better lives. Maybe I'm a little bit of a holistic person in this space, but that's what I'm building for. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that for a minute.
I think video is probably a great way to, I don't know if like circumvent, but like a great way to keep the human connection with discovery. And by the way, I have the same attitude as you do. The goal, there's a magic in discovery and going onto a site and learning about the founder. I really enjoy doing that. And I don't want to outsource that to an agent, although I'm sure it's going to happen. I would say that video is a good way. And to tell you from personal experience, my first company, we had 15,000 subscribers. I did it from my childhood bedroom, making guides to help students. And then that took off. And then for OpenForge, we do like AEO stuff on YouTube. We have 51,000 subscribers. And it's a great way to build a sales funnel or sales motion, because someone sees your video and then they hop on a call with the founder. They're always impressed and they want to learn more about that story. Video has been great. And video is not expensive, right? It sounds expensive. You need a good mic, one good ring light, a dark room, shut the blinds, and you can make a really good video for not that much money and gain a lot of high leverage from doing that.
A lot of people are also talking about community building as a way to learn together or as a group. So like Discords or Substacks or places where people go to be in community with people who like knitting or like crocheting, and people who are building these communities. There's a lot of talk about these being very valuable in the future, as a lot of the expertise is going to be blanketed over AI. It's going to be helpful to have one source of truth, knowledge. So building community could be a good defense as well.
I don't actually have a good answer for you, but just want to pose a philosophical question, which is, what is the thing, like the unused organ disappears, like the rule of Charles Darwin in the evolution. So I think the question isn't like, how do we preserve, or it can be, how do we preserve discovery? But what I would want to turn around and ask is, like, even if we try to preserve discovery, the new generation is going to be born into AI. So my question would be, how do you evolve discovery into something meaningful with the help of AI? Because fundamentally, I don't think it's escapable. But again, I'm sure it's not helpful, but just a question.
Yeah, I feel like discovery is going to be offloaded to social media at this point. And you've got like your Pinterests of the world and so on, which is largely about discovery, curated discovery. But I kind of agree that like the world is going in this direction, and there's going to be pockets of what you're preferring, but I don't think it's going to be as commonplace anymore, unfortunately. I miss vinyl. Yeah.
Vinyl is awesome, but the one thing I actually lost track of my thought.
Yep.
I did remember what I wanted to say. Basically, there's a whole New York Times article from Noam Chomsky when language models first came out. And he says, you're familiar with it, I assume. He basically said, hey, if we trained language models in ancient Greece, it couldn't discover gravity. So I agree with that. At least with the current format of single language models, you cannot discover gravity. So discovery from a let me find out where this known thing lives is going to go away. But let me find out net new information can still be offloaded to humans with the help of AI, which is what my answer would be for discovery.
We get working world models.
Yeah, it's true.
For sure, yeah. Philosophy of mind, though, a couple of years out.
All right, we're going to close out this session. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists, experts in the space. Thank you guys for joining us and participating. We're going to take a quick break and then start the next session, which is Emily's on dual web. Our host, JustWorks, is so gracious to provide great food and beverage in the back, so stick around if you want to, or you could take off. It's up to you. But yeah, thanks for joining us for this session on AI SEO.